Hello, I am Xarkun. This is World of Warships Legends. We've got Paolo di Revel on the screen. Apologies if I butchered his name, but he is the commander I am using on the new Tier 7 premium Italian battleship Roma, and at this time he is the only commander you can use. I've got his skill Artisan's Touch highlighted. I want to briefly go over that before we get into the game because it's significant. So this skill increases the AP shell penetration of your battleship's main battery at the cost of a lower chance of a citadel hit. I think that description is kind of misleading, but what it does is at level 11 it ups the battleship's penetration multiplier to 5%, but I've got it at 8.6% with the level 11 JoJo as an inspiration, which effectively means I'm getting what this skill would give me if Revel was at level 12 here at level 11. And it also increases the time to detonation of the battleship's AP shells by 10%. This means the AP shells take longer to detonate after penetrating armor and arming, but more on that later. For now, we're going to take the Roma out into battle on the map Estuary, capture the base mode. Going to go over the stats and then talk in more specifics about the ship. So it's got 65,400 hit points, which puts it to the lower end of the Tier 7 battleship spectrum, lower to mid-end. It's comparable to the Richelieu, Amagi, and Alabama. It's got 43% torpedo damage reduction, which is actually very good, tied for second best at the tier with the Amagi, and it's second, of course, to the Alabama's excellent torpedo damage reduction. It's got 9 381mm guns and 3 turrets with 3 guns each. They fire out to a range of 16.8 kilometers, which is not great, so it can be outranged by other battleships, but you can probably extend the range with a future battleship commander along the lines of, Sims or Takagi with his skills. This Revel guy is much more like Ciliax, more of a survivability commander. It's got 25.4 second reload on the main battery guns with the main battery mod in slot 4. Pretty quick reload, comparable to the German battleships. The turrets traverse 180 degrees in 34.5 seconds, which is decent. The HE shells do a maximum of 5,100 damage, with a rather abysmal 24% chance to start a fire. Now, I think that's decent HE shell damage, but that's the lowest fire chance at the tier. So don't be firing HE in this and expecting to light a lot of fires. The AP shells, however, do a maximum of 12,000 damage, which is higher than most of the other battleships at this tier with the same sized guns, but only by a little bit. The Vanguard has much higher AP shell damage. It's got a 30 knot top speed, which is pretty quick, comparable to the faster German battleships. 810 meter turning circle, which is fairly tight. I think only the Odin and Alabama turn more tightly. And it's got a 15.6 second rudder shift time, which is okay. Also, for what it's worth, the detectability by sea is 14.5 kilometers, so it's ever so slightly stealthier than your typical Tier 7 battleship. But how does it play? Well, if you've been paying attention to the shots we've been taking here, we've been pretty much getting nothing but over penetrations. And I'll admit, for the first several games that I played this ship, I wasn't liking it a whole lot. The guns, as far as accuracy goes, can be pretty inaccurate at longer ranges and sometimes at close ones. Sometimes it's like German accuracy levels of bad at longer ranges. Sometimes it's fine, and then at closer ranges it seems to be consistently a little bit better. I remember reading in the patch notes that they said the ideal firing range of the Roma was something like under 15 kilometers. I'd say more like under 12 or 10 kilometers is better, but even so, over penetrations all the time. And I was talking to some people, and they were saying maybe I shouldn't be using the Artisan's Touch skill. After all, it does increase the time it takes for the shell to detonate after entering a ship by penetrating its armor. So, if you're firing at, rather slender targets like cruisers, it means the shells are going to penetrate and go straight through the ship without ever detonating. That is a problem in most battleships, except for maybe the British ones, but it's particularly pronounced on the Roma, especially with Artisan's Touch. Now, I have put von Essen as one of the inspirations on the commander to increase the chance that the shells are going to penetrate by widening the minimal ricochet angle. And I have a theory about how this ship works best with Artisan's Touch, and I think you do want to use Artisan's Touch. You just have to play this ship a little bit differently than you would a typical battleship in terms of where you're going to aim. And, by the way, you might not want to charge into 3 enemy ships, a battleship and 2 cruisers, with only a destroyer as support. You can see we're nearly dead here. But don't worry, we're going to survive this, and things are going to start heating up pretty quickly. Anyway, I found as I was playing this ship with Artisan's Touch, and I was determined to keep that skill on there because it's Revel's unique skill, and I wanted to get a good demonstration of it in action, the pros and the cons of it, And obviously, the downsides are over-penetrations all the time, lots more than you would get on a regular battleship without this skill, even over-penetrations on things like the Odin. But it was kind of in this game that I had a bit of a eureka moment as far as how to get the best out of this skill. And it seems pretty simple. Essentially, you just want to aim at the thickest part of the ship that you can penetrate, so that when your shells enter the ship, they stay inside for long enough to detonate. And if you can do that, then you will be rewarded. As far as shooting at cruisers, it also helps if they are angled ever so slightly to give the shells more space to travel through the ship and detonate. So, sometimes you want to shoot at lightly armored cruisers when they're somewhat angled. That's very true on the Roma here, and true with the heavier armored cruisers as well, which is why I think von Essen is actually a very valuable inspiration for this particular commander and this particular ship, because potentially he's going to allow you to get penetrations on angled ships that you otherwise might not. It's not a big difference, but it might be enough between a ricochet and a full penetration for massive damage. But the trick I found is to aim at the waterline of battleships. I know that sounds pretty dumb and pretty simple, but if you're aiming at the waterline, that's where the ship is going to be thickest when it's broadside. So your shells are going to have enough time to penetrate and detonate before doing something like overpenning the ship. And that first hit there on the Odin was sort of my eureka moment. Now I follow it up with another 3 overpenetrations from the front guns, so I aim a little lower again, and then we finish him off. Unfortunately, one of his secondaries does light us on fire, and it kind of looks like lights out for this game. We've done 71,000 damage so far, but we're only just getting started. We are going to be able to deploy the heal before we die, but only just before, and as long as none of these guys shoot at us, we're going to be okay. We're going to be able to regain some hit points and get back in the fight. And I've already told you what's frustrating and annoying about the Roma as far as the overpenetrations go. It happens a lot unless you aim very carefully, and even sometimes then you're still going to get plagued and trolled by them, so maybe you don't want to use Artisan's Touch. But I think it actually could be a valuable skill. In any case, enough about what's annoying or whatever about the Roma. Let's talk about something that's very good about this ship, and that is the armor, particularly on the front of the ship. The back of the ship, not so much. This is not a battleship you want to kite away in. It seems to me like if you're facing something bow on at a steep or even some pretty wide angles, a lot of the battleship caliber shells are going to ricochet off your armor or they're going to shatter. You're presenting the same angle while kiting away and showing the aft end of your ship. It seems like the battleships have a much easier time penetrating. Take a look at this shot on the Jean Bart here. We hit him for a double citadel, nearly 30,000 damage. How often do you citadel a Jean Bart? Not very often, I don't think. At least I don't. But there is a wicked hit on that guy, and he's still presenting the same broadside. He is angling ever so slightly, but I think that's going to make it actually better for me. They're not as great of a hit. Only 3 shells actually managed to find the target, but they did temporarily take out one of his guns, and you can see from when he shot us there that all of his shells harmlessly bounced or shattered on the bow armor of this ship, which is quite strong. Taking aim again at the Jean Bart, the dispersion is trolling us here a little bit. We do get 2 full penetrations and a single ricochet. Could be the Von Essen inspiration helping us out there. So I really do think he is probably a pretty valuable inspiration on this ship. Anyway, it's incredibly well armored, and if it can get close to enemy battleships, it is a particularly effective brawler, especially when you're aiming right at the waterline for citadel shots. Now, the Artisan's Touch skill says there's a lower chance of hitting the citadel. I think that is a little bit misleading, because I think why it's saying that is since the shells take longer to detonate after penetrating the armor, they can pass through the citadel before they actually detonate. Maybe that's why it's saying there's a lower chance. That's just me kind of speculating. It may be that I'm completely wrong on all of this. This is just a first impressions video after all, and I haven't done a ton of research into it or anything, but that's kind of what I suspect. In any case, is this ship strong, and is it worth grinding for? At first, when I was frustrated with it, I kind of thought no. I thought I'll still get the Admiralty backing and I'll still get the ship. But now, after this game and another game that I had in the Roma, which I think I will put up soon, where I did more damage than I end up doing here, I thought, you know what, actually this is potentially a pretty powerful ship. I found the sweet spot as far as punishing battleships, and this thing is very good at doing that. But I still have a little bit more practice to put in, I think, before I get good at making the most out of the ship when it comes to shooting at cruisers, because over-penetrations are a bit of a problem. So I found the ship somewhat tricky. I think some other people are finding the ship tricky to play, but at the same time, I think it has the potential to be pretty nice and pretty powerful. So I'm gonna grind the campaign and get it at the end of it. It's certainly interesting. This Artisan's Touch thing is the thing that interests me most about it, because no other battleship in the game has AP shell characteristics like this ship has with that skill. In any case, we are coming to the end here. We're going to finish with 151,000 damage done and the high caliber medal. We're also, of course, going to get a dreadnought. So, pretty nice game in the Roma. Hope you enjoyed it. If so, give the video a like and consider subscribing if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Goodbye.